The screams still echoed in Admiral Sarah Chen's mind as she stood before the Galactic Council's emergency session. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian fleet had glassed New Geneva, and the images of 12 million human civilians being vaporized still burned behind her eyelids. The council chambers buzzed with the usual political chatter, but Chen could feel the weight of Earth's silence pressing down on everyone present. The incident at New Geneva was regrettable. High Chancellor Vextar of the Zephyrian hegemony spoke with the casual tone one might use to discuss a minor scheduling conflict. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he addressed the assembled delegates. However, the human colony was clearly in violation of the neutral zone accords. Military action was warranted. Chen's jaw tightened. She watched as various alien delegates nodded in agreement or shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Karathi representative, resembling a giant praying mantis, clicked his mandibles in what she had learned was approval. The crystalline Etherians chimed softly among themselves, their translucent forms shimmering with what appeared to be indifference. 12 million civilians, Chen said, her voice cutting through the chamber like a blade. Men, women, children, teachers, farmers, artists. Vaporized in minutes because a human cargo ship took a route that was allegedly 2 kilometers into disputed space. High Chancellor Vextar's scales rippled in what Chen recognized as Zephyrian amusement. Humans are so emotional about death. In the grand scheme of galactic politics, 12 million lives is a footnote. The hegemony maintains that our response was proportional. The chamber erupted in murmurs of agreement from several species. Chen looked around the room and saw the truth that humans had been blind to for the past 2 decades since first contact. To these beings, humanity was nothing more than an inconvenience. A young, weak species that had barely crawled out of their single solar system, tolerated only because Earth produced rare minerals that some of the older civilizations found useful. The Terran Federation's complaint is noted, spoke Prelate Quindar of the Nexus Confederation, his tentacles weaving complex patterns as he communicated. However, we must consider the broader implications of allowing territorial violations to go unpunished. The Zephyrian response, while severe, was technically within their rights under Article 47 of the Galactic Compact. Chen felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had known this was how it would go. Ambassador Williams had warned her before she left Earth's delegation. The older species saw humans as barely civilized newcomers who needed to be kept in line. They had been testing humanity's limits for months, imposing increasingly harsh restrictions on human expansion, demanding tribute in the form of resources and technology, and now this. You speak of rights, Chen said, standing slowly. Let me tell you about rights. Every human child learns about the Geneva Conventions, about rules of war, about protecting civilians. We believed that such basic decency was universal. We were wrong. The Zephyrian Chancellor's throat sac expanded in what Chen knew was laughter. Your species clings to these primitive notions of warfare. In the galaxy, survival belongs to the strong. Your Geneva Conventions are the luxury of a species that has never faced true conflict. True conflict. Chen's voice rose slightly. She thought of her great-grandfather, who had survived the Battle of Stalingrad, of her grandmother, who had lived through the London Blitz, of the thousands of years of human warfare that had eventually led to the very conventions that these aliens dismissed so casually. Chancellor, you clearly don't understand human history. The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel the attention of dozens of alien species focused on her, some curious, others dismissive. The Karathi delegates' antennae twitched with what she interpreted as amusement. We have reviewed your species' historical records, the Etherian representative chimed, their voice like crystal bells. Constant warfare, violence, destruction of your own planet's environment. Yet you speak of civilization. It is ironic. Chen nodded slowly. You're right. We have been violent. We have made mistakes. But we learned from them. We built something better. We created laws to protect the innocent, codes of honor to guide warriors, and institutions to keep peace. We thought joining this council meant joining others who shared those values. And now you know better, Chancellor Vextar said with finality. Your species will accept the loss of New Geneva as the cost of education. Perhaps now you understand your place in the galactic order. Chen looked around the chamber one more time. The Drakmari delegate, a massive creature that resembled an armored bear, was actually asleep. The insectoid hive queen of Kepler, 442, was grooming her antennae with evident boredom. The reptilian Salvani representatives were discussing what appeared to be dinner plans in hushed tones. 12 million human lives meant nothing to any of them. I understand, Chen said quietly. I understand perfectly. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. Every security scanner in the chamber immediately focused on it, but Chen held up her hand. This is a recording device. I'm transmitting this session back to Earth in real time. She paused. I want my government to hear the galaxy's response to the murder of our people. Murder is such an ugly word, Chancellor Vextar said. We prefer correction of territorial violation. Chen smiled, and something about that expression made several delegates shift nervously. Thank you, Chancellor. That will be particularly helpful for my report. She turned to address the entire chamber. For 2 decades, Earth has tried to be the model galactic citizen. We've followed every treaty, paid every tribute, accepted every restriction you've placed on us. We've been civilized. The word hung in the air like a threat. We believed that civilization meant something universal. That mercy, justice, and protection of the innocent were values shared by all sapient life. Today, we learned that civilization is apparently just another word for weakness. Chen began walking toward the chamber's exit. I need to report back to Earth's government. We have some important decisions to make. What decisions? Called out the Nexus prelate. His tentacles curling with what Chen had learned indicated concern. Chen paused at the chamber door. Whether to remain civilized. The chamber erupted in various alien sounds of confusion, amusement, and dismissal. Chen could hear Chancellor Vextar's scaled laughter above the rest. Are you threatening the galaxy, little human? Your entire species has perhaps 50 combat vessels. Your technology is centuries behind ours. What exactly do you think you can do? Chen looked back one final time. Chancellor, you just made the mistake that every species in our history has made when dealing with humans. You assumed that because we choose to be civilized, we've forgotten how to be anything else. She stepped through the door, leaving the chamber buzzing with confused chatter. As she walked toward her shuttle, Chen activated her personal communicator. Priority transmission to Earth Command. Tell them the Council has spoken. 12 million dead, 0 accountability. Recommend immediate implementation of Protocol 7. Her aide, Lieutenant Martinez, looked confused. Admiral, what's Protocol 7? That's not in any manual I've studied. Chen continued walking, her steps echoing in the station's corridor. It's not in the manual yet, Lieutenant. But it will be. Oh, it will be. Behind them, the Council chamber continued its session, delegates already moving on to discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes as if New Geneva had never existed. None of them noticed the small recording devices that Admiral Chen's security team had discreetly placed throughout the station 3 days earlier. None of them realized that every word, every gesture of dismissal, every casual laugh at human suffering was being transmitted not just to Earth, but to every human colony in the galaxy. By the time Chen reached her shuttle, the video of the Council session was already spreading across human networks. Within hours, it would reach the outer colonies. Within days, it would reach the generation ships that had been traveling to distant stars for decades. And, in the depths of space, in the dark between the stars where no alien sensors could reach, other ships would receive the message as well. Ships that the galaxy didn't know existed. Chen settled into her pilot's seat and began the journey back to Earth. She had one more stop to make before returning home. A small research station in the asteroid belt that, according to all official records, was studying mineral extraction techniques. The same station that had been sending encrypted messages to various human colonies for the past 5 years. The same station where Dr. Elizabeth Hayes had been working on what the records called defensive technologies. As her shuttle cleared the station's docking bay, Chen allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy had just taught humanity a valuable lesson about the nature of civilized behavior. Soon, humanity would return the favor. The transmission from New Geneva had included more than just the images of the massacre. In the final moments before the colony's communication array was destroyed, the station's sensors had recorded detailed scans of the Zephyrian fleet. Their shield frequencies, their weapon signatures, their tactical formations. All of it was already being analyzed by the best military minds humanity had to produce. But, more importantly, the Zephyrians had revealed something else in their casual destruction of New Geneva. They had shown that they had never really studied human history at all. If they had, they would have known that humanity's greatest advances in warfare had always come during their darkest hours. They would have known that when humans stopped playing by the rules, they tended to rewrite them entirely. Chen activated her navigation computer and set course for the asteroid belt. Behind her, the council station grew smaller in the distance, its delegates continuing their discussions as if they hadn't just declared war on the most adaptable species the galaxy had ever seen. They would learn better soon enough. The message from Earth Command came through as Chun entered hyperspace. Protocol 7 authorized. Dr. Hayes reports preliminary results exceed expectations. All assets to be activated on your return. God help us all. Chun powered down her communicator and settled back for the long journey home. The galaxy was about to discover what humans were really like when they stopped being civilized. She almost felt sorry for them. Almost. The stars shifted around her shuttle as it entered hyperspace, carrying Admiral Chun toward a meeting that would change the course of galactic history. Behind her, the council continued its session, unaware that they had just signed their own death warrant with their casual dismissal of human life. Humanity had tried civilization. Now they would try something else. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes watched the holographic display rotate slowly in front of her, the ghostly blue lines forming the outline of something that had never existed before in galactic history. The asteroid belt research station hummed quietly around her, its mining equipment providing perfect cover for the real work that had been happening here for 5 years. Work that the Galactic Council would have banned immediately if they had known about it. The neural interface is ready for final testing, reported Dr. Kim Okafor, her chief engineer. The tall Nigerian woman had been Chen's roommate at the academy 20 years ago, before Chen had chosen military service and Hayes had pursued theoretical physics. The connection between human brain patterns and AI systems is stable. We're looking at response times that are literally impossible for conventional piloting. Hayes nodded, but her attention remained focused on the hologram. The ship floating before her was sleek where alien vessels were bulky, curved where they were angular. Most importantly, it was small. While the Zephyrian dreadnoughts were over 3 kilometers long, this vessel was barely 50 meters from nose to tail. The aliens had built their ships like floating cities, requiring crews of thousands. Humans had built something else entirely. Show me the weapon systems again, Hayes said. The hologram shifted, revealing the ship's interior. Where other species mounted massive energy cannons that required enormous power cores and cooling systems, this vessel carried something different. A series of small, precise devices that looked almost delicate compared to alien weaponry. Quantum cascade torpedoes, Dr. Okafor explained. Each one creates a localized breakdown in the strong nuclear force. Instead of trying to overwhelm enemy shields with brute force, they simply make the matter holding those shields together stop existing. Hayes smiled grimly. It was a perfectly human solution to the problem of superior alien technology. While other species had spent millennia perfecting bigger and more powerful energy weapons, humanity had looked at the problem from a different angle entirely. They had asked not how to build a bigger gun, but how to make the enemy's gun stop working. Time to target destruction? Against standard galactic shielding? Approximately 0.3 seconds, Dr. Okafor replied. The cascade effect propagates faster than their shield generators can compensate. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. Hayes activated the communication system, and Admiral Chen's face appeared on the screen. Even through the encrypted transmission, Hayes could see the fury burning in Chen's eyes. The council session went exactly as we predicted, Chen said without preamble. 12 million dead humans are acceptable losses for a minor territorial dispute. They actually laughed, Elizabeth. They laughed at our children's deaths. Hayes had known this would be the result, but hearing it confirmed still sent ice through her veins. She thought of her nephew, who had been visiting New Geneva with his school class when the Zephyrian fleet arrived. 8 years old, excited about seeing his first alien archaeological site. Vaporized along with his classmates and teachers because some cargo ship pilot had taken a shortcut. How long until you reach us? Hayes asked. 6 hours. Are the field tests complete? Hayes looked around her laboratory. The walls were lined with monitor screens showing test data from across human space. For 5 years, selected human colonies had been secretly testing components of what they called the final option. Advanced materials that could self-repair. AI systems that could think faster than any organic brain. Weapons that could unmake matter itself. All disguised as civilian research projects. Better than complete, Hayes replied. We're ready for full production. The manufacturing stations have been running in secret for 2 years. We have enough components for the entire first wave. Chen's expression grew grim. How many ships? 2,000 in the first batch. Another 5,000 in various stages of completion across 17 different sites. Hayes paused. Sarah, once we do this, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way. Good, Chen replied. I'm tired of being seen as harmless. The transmission ended, leaving Hayes alone with Dr. Okafor in the laboratory. Through the viewports, they could see the asteroid belt stretching away into infinity, chunks of rock and metal that had been the raw materials for humanity's secret project. Hidden among the mining operations, automated factories had been churning out the components for a fleet that existed in no official records. Are you sure about the pilot selection? Dr. Okafor asked quietly. Hayes turned to another display that showed personnel files. Thousands of them, each marked with psychological profile data that would have horrified the Galactic Council. These weren't the diplomatic, peace-loving humans that Earth had been sending to council meetings. These were the other kind of human, the kind that every species preferred to pretend didn't exist. Former Special Forces operators who were discharged for being too aggressive, Hayes read from the files. Test pilots who were grounded for taking unnecessary risks. Military strategists who were court-martialed for suggesting tactics that violated the Geneva Conventions. She closed the file display. The galaxy wanted to see what humans are like when we're not being civilized. These are the humans they're going to meet. Dr. Okafor shivered slightly. Some of these psychological profiles are frankly terrifying. That's the point, Hayes replied. We've spent 20 years showing the galaxy our best behavior. Our diplomats, our scientists, our peacekeepers. We've hidden the fact that we're also the species that invented mutually assured destruction, that created weapons of mass destruction and, then, had the wisdom to never use them. She gestured toward the ship hologram. Until now. A new alert chimed. Hayes activated the display and saw incoming data from human colonies across the galaxy. The video of the council session had reached them all, and the responses were exactly what she had expected. Colony administrators were reporting massive spikes in military recruitment. Civilian factories were quietly retooling for military production. Most importantly, the generation ships that had been traveling to distant stars were changing course. Those ships represented humanity's greatest secret. While the galaxy thought humans were confined to a few dozen worlds within 50 light-years of Earth, the truth was that human colony ships had been spreading through the cosmos for over a century. Some had been traveling for so long that they had developed their own unique cultures and technologies. They were about to come home. How many total ships will we have? Dr. Okafor asked, reading the same data. Difficult to say exactly, Hayes replied. The generation ships have been building their own vessels during the journey. Our best estimate is somewhere around 50,000 ships of various classes. She paused. Plus whatever the Omega Protocol facilities have been constructing. Dr. Okafor's eyes widened. Even she didn't have clearance for information about the Omega facilities. Only a handful of people in human space knew about the secret installations that had been built in the void between star systems, powered by artificial black holes, and staffed by volunteers who had agreed to never return to human civilization. They had been working on projects that violated every treaty humanity had signed with the galactic community. The Zephyrians have a total fleet of about 12,000 vessels, Hayes continued. Most of the other major powers have similar numbers. None of them have fought a real war in over 1,000 years. They've forgotten what warfare actually looks like when a species is fighting for survival. The laboratory's main display activated, showing Admiral Chen's shuttle approaching the asteroid station. Hayes began the final preparations for humanity's transformation from victim to predator. The manufacturing systems came online, their automated assembly lines beginning the mass production of weapons that the galaxy had never imagined. As Chin's shuttle docked, Hayes reflected on the irony of the situation. The Galactic Council had spent 20 years trying to civilize humanity, to make them conform to galactic standards of behavior. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. Humans had become so civilized that they had almost forgotten what they were capable of when pushed to their limits. The massacre at New Geneva had reminded them. Admiral Chun entered the laboratory still wearing her formal diplomatic uniform. But Hayes could see the change in her posture. The careful, respectful demeanor that she had cultivated for council meetings was gone. In its place was something older and far more dangerous. Status report, Chin said without preamble. All systems are operational. The first wave of ships will be ready within 72 hours. Pilots are being briefed as we speak. Hayes brought up the tactical display. We've identified primary targets across Zephyrian space. Their industrial centers, their fleet bases, their homeworld. What about civilian casualties? Chin asked. Hayes had been dreading this question. That depends on how quickly they surrender. The quantum cascade weapons don't discriminate between military and civilian targets. If they try to hide their fleets among population centers. Chin was quiet for a long moment. The council made their position clear. Civilian deaths are acceptable in the pursuit of political objectives. Her voice was utterly cold. We'll extend them the same courtesy they showed New Geneva. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. Admiral, we need to discuss the neural interface pilots. The psychological screening has identified some concerning patterns. The human-AI integration process seems to amplify aggressive tendencies. Some of the test pilots are showing signs of changed priorities regarding alien life. Chen looked at the psychological profiles on the display. Hayes watched her read through reports of pilots who had begun referring to aliens as targets rather than beings, who spoke of enemy fleets the way a hunter might discuss prey. The neural interface that allowed instant communication between human intuition and artificial intelligence was creating something new, something that thought faster than any organic brain and felt no mercy for those it considered enemies. Are they still following orders? Chen asked. Perfectly. But, Admiral, I'm concerned about what happens after the war ends. Chen turned back to the tactical display showing the positions of alien fleets across the galaxy. Doctor, right now I'm more concerned about whether we'll be alive when the war ends. If these pilots can give us that chance, then we'll deal with the other problems later. Hayes understood. Humanity was facing potential extinction. The Zephyrians had demonstrated their willingness to commit genocide over minor infractions. Other species had laughed at human deaths. In such circumstances, the long-term psychological health of their pilots was a secondary concern. Begin final preparations, Chen ordered. I want the first strikes to hit simultaneously across Zephyrian space. Every military installation, every fleet base, every shipyard. Nothing that can fight back survives the opening attack. As the two women left the laboratory to oversee the final preparations, Hayes took one last look at the ship hologram. It was beautiful in its deadliness, a perfect fusion of human creativity and ruthless pragmatism. The galaxy had asked humanity to be civilized, and humanity had complied. Now the galaxy was about to learn what humans were like when they chose to be something else. The asteroid belt hummed with activity as automated systems prepared humanity's response to the New Geneva massacre. Soon, the galaxy would understand that mercy was a choice, not a weakness. And humans had just chosen to stop being merciful. Admiral Chin's final transmission to Earth was brief. Operation begins at 0800 tomorrow. God help them all. Commander Marcus Rodriguez felt the neural interface sync with his consciousness, and, suddenly, he was no longer just human. The AI aboard his ship merged with his thoughts, his reflexes, his instincts, creating something that had never existed before in the galaxy. Around him, 1,999 other pilots experienced the same transformation as the first wave of humanity's retribution launched simultaneously across 17 star systems. All units, this is Admiral Chun, came the transmission from the command ship. You know what they did to New Geneva? You know what the Council said about our dead children? Today, we remind the galaxy that humans have not always been civilized. Rodriguez's enhanced perception could track every ship in the human fleet. Unlike the massive alien dreadnoughts that required hours to coordinate maneuvers, the human ships moved like a single organism. The AI network allowed them to share information instantaneously, to react to threats before conscious thought could even process them. Zephyrian homeworld defense grid detected. His AI partner reported directly into his mind. 47 orbital platforms, 312 defending vessels. Threat assessment, manageable. Rodriguez smiled grimly. The Zephyrians had built their defenses to withstand the slow, predictable attacks of conventional galactic warfare. They had never faced an enemy that could think at the speed of light and strike with weapons that simply erased matter from existence. Begin attack run, he transmitted to his squadron. The human ships accelerated toward the Zephyrian homeworld at velocities that would have been impossible for organic pilots to survive. The neural interface allowed them to endure G-forces that would have liquefied normal humans, while the AI handled calculations too complex for biological brains to process. Incoming fire, his AI reported as the Zephyrian defense platforms opened up with their massive energy cannons. The beams were powerful enough to vaporize mountains, but they moved with the ponderous predictability of weapons designed for battles between equally slow opponents. Rodriguez's ship twisted through the defensive fire like a dancer, the AI calculating trajectory adjustments milliseconds before the enemy weapons could lock on. Around him, the rest of his squadron moved in perfect coordination, their ships flowing through the defensive grid like water through a sieve. Quantum cascade torpedoes armed, the AI announced. Fire at will. The torpedoes streaked toward their targets, each one containing enough destructive potential to unmake a small moon. They struck the Zephyrian platforms not with explosions, but with something far worse. The quantum cascade effect propagated through the station's matter at the subatomic level, causing the strong nuclear force to simply stop functioning in a growing sphere around the impact point. Rodriguez watched through his enhanced vision as the first orbital platform simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not exploded, but erased from reality as its atoms forgot how to hold together. The effect spread to neighboring platforms as the cascade reaction jumped from target to target. "My God," whispered Lieutenant Chun, one of the newer pilots. "We're not just destroying them. We're making them stop existing." "That's the point," Rodriguez replied coldly. The neural interface had changed him in the months of training. Where once he might have felt horror at such complete destruction, now he felt only satisfaction. The aliens had laughed at dead human children. Now they would learn what human laughter sounded like. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out as human fleets struck simultaneously at every major Zephyrian installation. The aliens' communication networks were being overwhelmed with desperate calls for help, reports of entire star systems going dark, and increasingly frantic attempts to understand what was happening. "Fleet Command, this is Rodriguez. Zephyrian homeworld defenses are neutralized. Beginning bombardment of military targets." "Copy that, Rodriguez. Remember the rules of engagement. Military targets only, unless they use civilian shields." Rodriguez's enhanced senses locked onto the planet below. His AI partner identified every military base, every starship construction facility, every weapons research station. The Zephyrians had built their civilization on the assumption that superior firepower could solve any problem. They were about to learn the difference between firepower and precision. The first salvo of quantum cascade torpedoes struck the planet's surface with surgical accuracy. Rodriguez watched as the Zephyrian Global Defense Headquarters simply vanished, along with the 3 city blocks surrounding it. The cascade effect was perfectly contained, erasing only military targets while leaving civilian areas untouched. "Incoming transmission from Zephyrian High Command," his AI reported. "Put it through." The voice of High Chancellor Vextar filled Rodriguez's cockpit, but gone was the arrogant confidence from the council session. "Unknown human vessels, cease your attack immediately. We demand to speak with your commanding officer." Rodriguez felt a cold smile spread across his face. "This is Commander Rodriguez of the Terran Strike Force. I am my commanding officer." "Impossible. These vessels require fleet-level coordination. You cannot be operating independently." "Chancellor, you've made a lot of assumptions about humans that turn out to be wrong. Here's another one being corrected. Rodriguez transmitted the tactical display showing the human fleet's positions. Every ship you see is operating independently. Every pilot you're facing is connected to an artificial intelligence that thinks faster than your best strategists. We don't need commanding officers because we are all commanding officers. The silence from the Zephyrian end lasted several seconds. When Vextar spoke again, his voice carried a note Rodriguez had never heard from a Zephyrian before: fear. What are your terms for ending this attack? Rodriguez checked his mission parameters. Admiral Chen's orders had been very specific about this moment. Unconditional surrender of all Zephyrian military forces. Full reparations for New Geneva. Withdrawal from all human territory. Trial of all officers involved in the massacre. Those terms are unacceptable. The Galactic Council will never— Chancellor, Rodriguez interrupted. Let me show you something. He transmitted a real-time tactical feed showing human fleets attacking Zephyrian installations across 17 star systems simultaneously. Shipyards that had taken centuries to build were being erased from existence in minutes. Fleets that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were being hunted down and destroyed by opponents they couldn't even track. This is happening everywhere, Rodriguez continued. Every Zephyrian military asset in known space is currently under attack by human forces. Your entire war machine will be gone within 6 hours whether you surrender or not. The only question is whether your civilian population survives. What comes next? Another pause. What comes next? Rodriguez's AI partner fed him intelligence reports from across human space. The generation ships were arriving at their destination systems, revealing colonies that had been secretly established for decades. Manufacturing centers that had been building warships in the depths of interstellar space were coming online. Most terrifyingly, the Omega Protocol facilities were preparing to release weapons that made quantum cascade torpedoes look like toys. Phase 2, Rodriguez said simply. Across the Zephyrian homeworld, every military installation had been reduced to expanding spheres of nothing. The planet's defense fleet was scattered debris floating in orbit. But the human ships held their positions, waiting. What is Phase 2? Vextar asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Rodriguez felt the neural interface connect him to Admiral Chen's command ship. Through the network, he could see the tactical situation across all of human space. Phase 1 had been a complete success. Every major Zephyrian military asset had been destroyed or neutralized. But the other alien species were mobilizing their fleets, rallying to support their former allies against this unexpected human threat. Chancellor, your species made the mistake of thinking that the humans you met in council chambers represented all of humanity. You thought we were all diplomats and scientists and peacekeepers. Rodriguez's voice carried the cold certainty of the enhanced human-AI hybrid consciousness. Phase 2 is when you meet the other humans. The ones we don't usually let off Earth. Through the neural network, Rodriguez could feel them coming. Ships that had never appeared on any official registry, crewed by humans who had volunteered to become something beyond normal human limitations. Veterans of conflicts that officially never happened. Scientists who had continued research that was banned by every civilized nation. Soldiers who had been too dangerous for conventional military service. You see, Chancellor, civilized behavior is a choice we make. For 20 years, we chose to be the humans you could tolerate. After New Geneva, we chose to be the humans you should fear. But you've continued to resist, and now. Rodriguez paused as new orders came through the network. Now you get to meet the humans you should pray never exist. The transmission from the Chancellor became increasingly desperate. Wait, we can negotiate. The Council can reach an accommodation. The time for negotiation ended when you laughed at our dead children, Rodriguez replied. Phase 2 begins in 30 minutes. I suggest you spend that time preparing your people for what's coming. Around the Zephyrian homeworld, the human ships began withdrawing to a safe distance. They had accomplished their primary objective of eliminating immediate military threats. But Phase 2 required different tools. Tools that no civilized species should possess. Rodriguez felt the neural interface download new mission parameters. His AI partner processed the information and provided tactical assessments that made his enhanced consciousness recoil slightly. Even with his modified psychology, the scope of Phase 2 was almost beyond comprehension. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Phase 1 is complete. Prepare for Phase 2 deployment. Remember, they had their chance to surrender. Through the neural network, Rodriguez could see the Omega facilities opening their sealed base. Ships emerged that looked like nothing in the human fleet, vessels designed by minds that had been freed from every ethical constraint that had previously limited human weapons development. Rodriguez, you're being reassigned to escort duty. The Omega ships need protection while they deploy their payloads. Rodriguez acknowledged the orders and changed course to rendezvous with the incoming Omega fleet. As he flew toward the meeting point, he reflected on how completely the galaxy had misunderstood humanity. They had seen Earth's diplomats and assumed all humans were peaceful. They had seen human restraint and assumed it was weakness. They were about to learn that human restraint was actually the most terrifying thing about the species. Because when humans chose to stop being restrained, they became something that the galaxy had never imagined possible. The Omega ships were approaching the edge of the system, and Rodriguez could see their escort formations taking shape. Phase 2 was about to begin, and after it was over, the galaxy would never again make the mistake of thinking that humans were harmless. The universe was about to discover what humanity looked like when they truly stopped being civilized. Rodriguez felt a mixture of anticipation and something that might have been pity for what was coming, but mostly anticipation. The neural interface hummed with activity as Phase 2 began, and Rodriguez smiled as he guided his ship toward the next target. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans were really like. Now they would learn.